Hello and welcome to this discussion on unlocking data value brought to you by Western Digital in association with Strategic. The growth in data has been exponential and it has shown no signs of slowing down. The real challenge is making this data relevant for the business so that they can derive meaningful and transformative insights. I have been joined today by Balaji Raghunathan, Associate Partner, Technology and Capability Head for Digital Experience at ITC Infotech, and Jagannathan Chelaya, Director Marketing, Western Digital India, as we discuss and find out how enterprises look at this explosion of data, the challenges that they face, and the solutions that can enable them to unlock the true value of data. Welcome, Balaji and Jagan, to this conversation. Let's start with you, Balaji. So there has been an exponential increase in the speed and volume of data, and this data needs to be handled and be available at all times and under all conditions. Secondly, we are not only talking of a highly structured information from a limited number of data sources. What are some of the typical challenges around data, and how are you responding to these data challenges?
If we look at in maybe I would say the 2000s, right? Uh, it was largely data was owned by business and it was largely in silos. Each unit had their own data, and so what ended up happening was like uh, who's a customer, or what are the customer details used to be owned by that particular business unit, and it was as true as what the business unit perceives.
True.
And if I go to a different business unit, it would probably be the same customer, but they would have a different name, or it might just be some kind of space between two different names, or maybe the first name and second name might have got interchanged, but they wouldn't know that it's the same customer.
Customer.
So what ended up happening was like people thought that okay, I should actually look at a unified view of a customer. And then what they did was like they actually started a lot of these MDM kind of projects, master data management kind of projects, where they were able to achieve some kind of unified view across the enterprise. Uh, but again, this again was more like a technology-led solution rather than how it links to business benefits. And if we look at the post 2000s, everything has been happening online. Now, how do I know the customer whom I have is the same as the customer who visits different sites, or different social media sites, or even my own portal, right? So that was a challenge. So how do I unify this customer, or how do I enrich my customer data, or whatever other relevant data I have with me, with third party data, or with social media data, or with public data? So that was the next problem. And in parallel, you would also see that like there was Google and Facebook coming in with their own frameworks for managing large data.
Yes. Right.
The Hadoop revolution came in, and then we also had the third dimension, which is the infrastructure for this, right? The storage. It was getting more and more commoditized, and the compute also getting more and more commoditized. So all this actually resulted in big data problem for most of the enterprises. So most of the customers were either looking at the cloud for all solving their big data problems, or even internally within their own premise, they were looking at unifying a lot of this data and solving some big data problems. And with this, they wanted to actually set up some kind of view in terms of how will they leverage artificial intelligence for addressing some of their key needs. Can they actually get some value out of their structured data? Can they get some value out of their documents, which was largely unstructured? And then it also went on to the images. It went on to deep learning. So so that is how the evolution from a data perspective and data challenges have evolved. And all this resulted in multiple other challenges which we still need to address whenever we do any of this data transformation projects. One is, what is a single view of my entity, be it my customer or a product or asset or whatever it is, right? So that is the first part. How do I know that they are the same customer or they are the same product? So that is the first challenge which customers are trying to address. Then the second problem what they're trying to address is like in terms of what is my customer 360 or product 360? What are all the transactions my customer has made over a given period of time so that I can better know my customer? So I think that's the second problem they are trying to solve. So that is what we call as the anything 360. And third is essentially, it has been more of a, I won't say bureaucratic culture, but data was giving, the senior management the edge over, the decisions what they take. So the decision making was largely restricted to, the senior management and executives. Today, it is more in terms of how do you democratize data to your lower levels.
You've touched some of the key challenges piece where you've spoken about getting a consistency of data for your customers, for the business. We've also touched upon how storage has got commoditized and how it's uptaking. So Jagan, let's draw you in this conversation and try to understand from you. So while Balaji has mentioned some of the key challenges that enterprises face with respect to data, how as a company Western Digital is trying to solve and address these needs, especially for the enterprises in the infrastructure and data storage space.
Balaji clearly highlighted about two, three important challenges, right, from a business side of it, and then he also highlighted a few aspects which are more infrastructural, right. Now, to me, both are interrelated, right. First, right, for you to have a good, right, usable information, either for execs at the highest level or for right, field level executives to make some real time decisions. You'll need to have right a very very robust data infrastructure, which right is defined on capacity, speed, scale, and availability at any point in time. That's super critical, right? Now, once you are clear in terms of what is the problem that you're trying to solve, okay, then you can really have a very very robust data strategy. Okay? That strategy then can right be translated into the right type of data infrastructure strategy. Okay? So that's how you need to build the entire context. Okay. Now at Western Digital, we look at this problem as simple building blocks right, that we need to provide to help organization put together their data infrastructure. That could be on-prem, or it could be a combination of on-prem and cloud solutions. Now, when it comes to speed, let me give you an example, right? So Balaji spoke about customer experience.
Right.
Look at a scenario where there is a real-time transaction happening right in an e-commerce marketplace, right? There are several things which that e-commerce right player will need to take into account. One, he needs to provide the right and personalized service for the customer who's transacting. Okay. Two, he'll need to ensure that the transaction goes off right without any blip. Okay. And three, we also need to run adequate structures in the back end to ensure that there is no right fraudulent transaction that is happening in this place. Now, all this calls for right very very right a strong right, data infrastructure that can provide real-time data processing. Right. Now, so this is where right Western Digital and its innovation come into play, right? So we are really, really trying to build in solutions which have right the best-in-class storage capability with the right technology that can match up to the speedy requirements of the customer. Okay, NVMe technology right now is kind of becoming the standard that is ensuring that the compute, the intelligence, which is the software AI in this space, and the storage are able to transact data in a manner that the businesses does not have to wait and as a result have any losses in terms of time and revenue. Okay, so clearly that's the direction in which we are moving when it comes to speed of transactions. Similarly, okay, capacity also is super critical, right? Balaji spoke about how the volume of data is growing exponentially, right? So it's really critical that you have the right kind of right density that can be filled in the smallest possible right, footprint. Okay, so again, right, so we are really driving hard to figure out how we can get, right, max capacity built into, right, our enterprise class hard drives, right? So recently we introduced a 20 terabyte drive on our UltraStar enterprise drives, right? So they actually pack in a lot of content at smallest possible footprint, which also has a whole bunch of added benefits when it comes to overall TCO.
Right. Is there a need for high performance storage solutions within enterprises, and especially like the likes of NVMe?
Yeah. So if I look at the evolution of AI, right, it actually started off with machine learning. Now it's getting into more deep learning, right? So now what that means is like you need more compute than what you ever needed. You
Right.
need more storage than what you ever needed. So what ended up happening was like from a processing perspective, the GPUs actually came to the rescue of fast data processing and real-time processing. But then from a storage perspective, or how do you want to access this storage, that evolution was a bit slower. And so what ended up happening was like your processor with the GPUs, it ended up processing things very fast, but still there was a wait time because the amount of queuing capacity was very limited. So that's where the NVMe kind of solutions become very relevant. And leveraging this kind of NVMe solutions, we can actually make sure that the queuing is much more limited, the processing is much more faster, and so there is, you actually benefit from parallelization, which actually reduces your processing. So essentially what I would say is that NVMe has actually made uh, GPUs more relevant, and vice versa, right? So actually I think NVMe is actually sort of came in to fill that gap between fast processing, but how do you look at it from a storage perspective, and how do you bridge this gap? And I think that's how I think it is essentially now from a AI or data analytics perspective, you will need your compute to be faster, you will need your storage to be much more faster, low latency storage. So I think this is how NVMe has bridged from a performance perspective whatever you need from an analytics infrastructure.
Absolutely right. I just want to add to what Balaji said. Right, he spoke about AI and ML. Okay? So it's a very important aspect. So when it comes to, right, ML in particular, you will need a very strong feed into the GPUs for it to actually calculate, right, right at light speed. Let me put it that way. Okay? Now, so NVMe technology is the native protocol for SSDs, right? So it allows you to do parallel processing and maximize throughput to both GPU and CPU. Okay? So that makes a significant difference when it comes to compute capabilities, okay? And also your ability to analyze, right, tons of unstructured data. Right? Let me give you an example by quoting, right, how MRI scans are used in M learning. Right? So MRI scans, right, one scan could run into a terabyte in terms of feed. Right? So now when an ML network will need to learn, right, it will need to process thousands of right, MRI scans, right, to ensure that it has the right amount of reference to derive patterns. And now the traditional model will not support this. The traditional SAS and SATA model will not support this, right? Herein comes the NVMe protocol, which gets the right amount of feed from the SSDs to feed into GPUs and CPUs to actually get the right desired ML learning output, right? So that's when data becomes really valuable for you to actually make different types of decisions, right? The other play, right, significant play is in the OLTP and OLAP space, right, where real-time processing is super critical, and there is only that much a RAM can handle, right? So typically NVMe technology, along with an SSD, now kind of become an extension of your memory, so that you have huge amount of fast processing that is possible because of, right, having an NVMe based SSD connected to you, right, your overall solution, right? So that's an important aspect that we are building on, and we have a very strong portfolio under our UltraStar NVMe enterprise class SSDs to facilitate this.
Right. Thank you so much, Balaji, Jagan, for sharing your views. I'll quickly summarize. So it's beyond doubt that data is a building block for businesses. In a rapidly evolving data landscape, more and more organizations are looking for ways to create value out of data. There are some challenges that enterprises need to address, especially around inconsistency of data, which Balaji touched upon, and trying to get a single view of data for customers and business. Newer technologies such as NVMe is gaining traction. It can prove, or as Jagan said, it can be a game changer for data centers and applications, especially for emerging technology workloads, Internet of Things, and real-time analytics. Thank you once again for joining this conversation. Pleasure speaking with both of you.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, Jagan.